In this video, we'll be looking at the roles and responsibilities at site. And in this section, we'll be looking at responsibilities, setting up of facilities at site, inventory or store management at site, and even handling of material. So how do you transport material from one place to another place? So in this section, we'll be looking at multiple things in the program. However, in this video, let's focus on responsibilities at site. So here, what we need to understand is when we talk about roles and responsibilities, these are two separate things. Roles are the things that you do, responsibilities are the things that you should be doing. All right. So, based on the designation, based on the profile, based on the level that you are in, and the involvement that you are putting in the project, the roles and responsibilities will keep on changing. Before we understand the roles and responsibilities of a project manager, a site engineer, and multiple other profiles, let's look at what is the basic understanding of workflow in a project. The first most important thing is the client. The client will be the most important stakeholder, and with the client will be the design team and the design consulting or architect. Normally, design and architecture will come together, or they might come different as well. So when I say design team, I'm talking about structural design. When I say architect, I'm talking about architectural design or aesthetical design. Right? So architect team and the structural team will be the first ones to tie up with the client. Once the client has confirmed the architect and the design team, then they go for the general contractor. General contractor normally is based on two types of hiring. One, based on references or based on past work experience, based on the known brand or multiple other selection processes. Or the easiest way to do it or the best way to do it would be to have a tender. That is where a lot of clients run a tender, have the bidding process, make the tender document, contract it with the contractor, and award the contract to the general contractor. It is normally called as general contractor or sometimes called as the prime contractor also. So once the general contractor or GC is selected, the GC will now decide how to take it further. Now there are two ways of getting work done for a contractor. One is something called as a supply labor concept. Supply labor concept means the contractor will bring the material supply. The labor will be outsourced to someone else. So the labor contractor will be different. So that will be outsourced and the supply is taken care of by the general contractor. The second one is called as a back-to-back contract. Back-to-back contract means the supply as well as labor is being provided to a subcontractor. This is used when the general contractor doesn't have the expertise to handle one kind of a work. For example, in a building, let's say I'm the general contractor, but I don't have expertise in fall ceiling. So in that case, what I do, all the fall ceiling works, I can either do supply labor where I supply the material and the fall ceiling team or a different outsourced subcontractor will come and install the fall ceiling. That is way number one. The second way to do it is the entire fall ceiling work will be subcontracted to the subcontractor. So they will get the material, they will handle the wastage, they will handle any damages, they will do the installation and they will hand over it to me, which is the general contractor. So any kind of work in a project can be handled in two ways with the general contractor. One is the supply labor, second is back-to-back or total subcontracting. So once we understand that, the second one we need to understand is the engineering team. So general contractor cannot give back-to-back to everything, correct? So back-to-back is given to only niche few works in the project, which the general contractor might not have the expertise for. That is when the general contractor needs to have their own team as well. A planning manager, a procurement manager, execution or construction manager. So these kind of managers or engineering team should be available with the general contractor for the majority of the works. And the rest of the works, which is a small minority, is where you can give the back-to-back as well. Now, if you look at the tenders, recent tenders in Indian metro and airports, majority of the tenders have this one clause where they clearly state that at least 70% of the project should be supply labor and not be given to subcontracting or back to back. That means what? The general contractor who wins the tender should be doing at least 70% of the work for which they have won the tender. The rest 30% you can give it to a subcontractor and get it done, because you will find way more experts for niche work such as false ceiling, ACP, tiling. So based on these specific works, you can give out subcontracting as well. So that comes under the engineering team and the general contractor. Then you have the GC suppliers. In case we go with the supply labor, which is the majority of the project. In case we go with the supply labor, we need vendors to supply the materials to us. So our or the general contractors procurement team or the purchase team will be deciding what is the rate to close at, what is the negotiation, how can we close the deal at the minimum rate with the vendors. That is where you get GC suppliers. So GC suppliers are responsible for providing the material which is required for the construction of the project. The rest 30% can be provided with the subcontractor in back-to-back format. Back-to-back as in the supply of the material and the installation of the work or the execution of the work will be taken care by the subcontractors itself. Now that we have understood the whole and flow of work in the construction project, let's get into the hierarchy. Again, this is a general hierarchy. This is not a specific hierarchy per project. Each project might be unique as well. General hierarchy is basically starts with the project manager or a project director. If it is a huge project, then you have project director, under which you come with project manager. Below that will be site engineer, and along with site engineer, normally site engineer is not the entire designation. It will be senior engineer or project engineer. Below that comes project coordinator, and right below that comes project executive. And that is where most of the fresh civil engineers are going to be working as well. And below that, of course, you have laborers or supervisors and then laborers. So this is going to be the general hierarchy. Now let's understand the one role which everyone wants to be as a fresher or as a student, which is project manager. Project manager general work is to oversee the planning and delivery of construction. Project manager is not going to be in site like a site engineer talking to laborers and getting the work done. Project manager's role will be to manage the work, yes, but more than that, their work will be to manage the professionals or manage the engineers. They should ensure that the work is going to finish before the deadline and should be under the budgeted cost. That is the goal of project manager. Project managers are always judged upon their performance in terms of how much early they finished the project or how less of a delay there was in the project and how much they went over the budget or under the budget in the project. That is how you decide the performance of the project manager. Now let's look at the roles of a project manager from where it starts to where it ends. It starts right from managing the bidding of the project. Of course, the contract team will be the one which will be taking the primary role, but however, project manager also needs to be involved in the bidding process of the project. Once that is done, they should be in talks with the planning team to create the schedules for required for the work. When I say schedule, it might be for activity schedule as well as resource schedule as well as the procurement schedule. So this is something that the project manager needs to do before the construction even starts. Once that is done, they have to be sitting with the costing team and the cost managers and monitor and plan the entire budget of the project. Once the budget and the costing plan has been done, then they need to hire the workforce for the entire project. Either you hire a new workforce from the outside world or you transfer the workforce from a different project. That is based upon the project manager's availability and the project manager's requirement as well. Next job will be to find and manage the subcontractors. If you're giving back to back, how to manage them? If you are giving supply labor, how to manage them? The next work will be to manage the equipment and materials. When I say equipment and materials, of course, procurement team will be the primary responsibility for it. However, project manager needs to approve the equipments and the material signings as well. The last one is to make sure during all these processes, they have to comply to all the regulations according to the government as well. And sometimes with the client and with the safety regulations, which is OSHA. There is something called as OSHA regulations. That is the regulatory authority for safety concerns at projects. Now, this is what the project manager will be doing apart from managing the site work. All right. So this is the very simple summary of what all works the project manager needs to do in a project. All right. In the next video, we'll be looking at multiple other roles as well. See you in the next video.